UBC, inspiring Uganda. Are you tired of living with chronic pain or illness? Do you struggle with immune deficiency, joint pains, or digestive issues? CanCert has a solution for you. Our immunotherapy treatment targets the range of conditions including loss of bone mass, inflammation, constant headache, and many more. Our CardioClear treatment cleanses your body, rehabilitates your heart valves, and treats stomach-related issues. We also address high blood pressure, loss of memory, diabetes, and dizziness. Don't let illness hold you back. CanCert, we are located in Makindye, near Makindye Court. For more details, call 0772 549 153. CanCert, we are the solution to your health issues.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning and welcome back from the weekend. The weekend where we saw Liverpool crowned Premier League champions, and Robert right here is, I think he's reeling from the shock of almost getting to the end but never getting there. I know that should be really, really grueling pain. And Robert, I really feel for you right now. Are you okay?
For the first time, I thought Manchester United fans were better off because they had no hope.
And it was okay.
And it was okay. They had no hope. It was clear for them.
Better to have no hope than to...
But you see, when you have hope and towards the end you lose it. Now, this is, I think, the third season that we are almost there and we end up losing. So I for once felt maybe I wish I was a Man U fan.
We need an exorcism.
Do we need deliverance prayers for Arsenal? Perhaps Arteta should visit a church. I don't know, some deliverance.
We need serious prayers because we must break that bondage of failing.
Of almost getting there and not getting there.
I don't know. We need, and for Arsenal fans, soon I'll declare a 40-day fast before the next season.
Wow.
Oh.
That's extreme passion for sports.
But for the Man U fans, yes, I know they felt better because
I
they
think
don't have hope.
Man U should not be in this conversation. You handle your loss on your own.
It's like
But you know, the thing is, even Man United fans can't keep quiet. So
Yeah.
in one way or the other, each other will have each other on their lips.
Okay, interesting. There is that sort of toxic relationship between Manchester United and Arsenal fans. But yes, Liverpool were crowned Premier League champions in style and drew level with Manchester United on 20 titles as Tottenham Hotspur were demolished on a day of wild celebrations and emotion at Anfield. Now, if you saw the events that occurred outside Anfield yesterday, you would know what I am actually talking about. But Ruben will give us more on that later on in our sports segment, so make sure not to miss it. Now, coming back to Uganda, the police and the Works and Transport Ministry are expected to start enforcing the new statutory instrument number 56 of 2024, which is dubbed the Traffic and Road Safety Express Penalty Scheme for Road Offenders Regulations 2024 on May 15th this year. What does this mean? It means that failure to do this, they would face a surcharge of 50% upon failure to pay. Now, this has been reversed from 28 days to 3 days. So if you get a ticket 3 days and you've not paid, unfortunately, it's going to be more dire for you. Which makes me wonder how Julie's weekend was and if this is actually the moving to the right direction.
Well, my weekend was all right. My weekend was okay. When I studied the new regulations, the statutory regulations 2024, well, the goal is to prevent speed limit, excessive speed on the roads, right? And I wonder, will there be a difference between now and then based on the rules that we've been following from the statutory instruments of 2004 and the rules that we're following on the statutory instruments of 2024. But I loved some of the interaction on the X-handle of Ministry of Works and Transport. And therein, somebody did ask, will these charges be on the owner of the car or the driver at that particular time? And the ministry answered that the registered vehicle owner will bear the charges. But if you ask me, on one hand, because now from 28 days to 3 days, I think it forces discipline. One thing Uganda is known for on the roads is we are very indisciplined on the roads. For every foreigner who visits Uganda, they'll tell you driving on Ugandan roads is such a sport. So perhaps I look forward to the discipline, especially if you look at 28 days and 3 days, that's scary. That is scary. And that means that as you keep the roads safe, your money should also be where it belongs. And if it's hard-earned money, it will pinch.
Okay. Now, the backstory, the express penalty, the express penalty for road traffic offenders was introduced by the Works and Transport Ministry in 2002 as an alternative way to penalize errant motorists. And last year, the police issued EPS tickets valued at 41.4 billion shillings, with 40 billion shillings paid. According to the Auditor General's report of 2022, there were more than 527 unpaid express penalty tickets valued at over 100 billion shillings across 3 financial years. So this paints a picture of why now we are moving things to 3 days.
It's more strict. Now, in fact, if you say that the Ugandans had gotten so used to the penalties that have been available, and it had become a norm that banku BH popular, banku BH ticket, but it's no more.
And they keep it.
Yeah, and they keep it. Yes, it was no more talk. One would express themselves from a POV of. It's as simple as maybe not paying a certain tax that you're supposed to pay. And anyways, I'll find a way of dodging it. But right now, 3 days, for me, that's a threshold of the 3 days from the 28 days. I feel it's going to put people into a disciplined mode.
I hope so, Julie. I really hope so, because
hopefully it's implemented.
I have my doubts. I'm like Robert. I have my doubts, but let's watch this space and see what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I also understand that Uganda has finally been declared Ebola-free.
Yes,
Robert.
Well, that is the good news that I had over the weekend, because if you all remember very well, it was this very year when we reported a case of a nurse who died at the referral hospital. That's a 32-year-old nurse. That was on the 30th of January this very year. And the ministry came out and told us we have an outbreak of Ebola Sudan virus. Now, this wasn't very good news. We lost people. We lost about 40 people. But of course, what is very interesting here is that Uganda's recovery rate has been praised by the World Health Organization, because very few countries in the world, and actually have been chosen as a model, that have a recovery rate of 83%, meaning 83% of the people that contracted Ebola were treated and healed and fully recovered. Now, according to World Health Organization, for you to be confirmed Ebola-free, you must have taken 42 days without any new case reported. Now, Ebola has an incubation period of 21 days. That means those are 2 cycles of you not registering any case of Ebola. So that is the good news we have, that now we can say, as of now, that we are Ebola-free as a country.
Wow, indeed, that's is
good news.
Good news, very, very good news on this Monday morning. But we have more news in our local news stories with Robert Chirova.
Well, we begin with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who challenged religious leaders to embrace the late Pope Francis, who preached unity in diversity regarding the lives of various people, that despite being a Catholic, Catholic Church, the Pope chose to be a servant of humanity and the universe. Museveni was addressing Christians at the inauguration of All Saints Church in Sembabule district. President Museveni commissioned the church in Sembabule. Accompanied by the first daughter, the president was received in Sembabule by former Minister for Foreign Affairs Sam Kahamba Kutesa, among other dignitaries. The newly constructed multi-million church falls under West Buganda Diocese, and it's an idea of former Foreign Affairs Minister Sam Kutesa. Addressing congregants at the church, he told them to appreciate what the Lord has done for them, but also continue to support the church at large. To at least for the first family, it was clear that they have been at the forefront of sowing seed of evangelism in Uganda. The event was graced by a cross-section of leaders both from government and the faith. Referring to the late Pope Francis, his gesture of embracing all religions and humanity in regards despite their various religion backgrounds, the president said this should be emulated by all leaders. Moving on, President Museveni pronounced himself on the permanent solution to address tensions and disputes between two communities, the Japadola and Iteso in Tororo district. The president considered a move to divide Tororo into 3 new districts and Tororo city. The president's pronouncement raised mixed reactions as some beneficiaries welcomed the move while others remained skeptical. The status quo seemed to end the decade-long disputes and tension between the Japadola and the Iteso communities of Tororo district. A neutral Tororo city and 3 new districts of Mulanda, Mukuju, and another name yet to be identified will cause the earlier Tororo district no more. The debate returned after President Museveni said that this is the way that these communities can have peace at last. The proposed Mukuju district and Tororo city could address the dispute inclusive of the boundaries which accommodate Tororo municipality. This has been in the shelf since 2005 when Tororo County was elevated to a district status but was rejected due to unresolved boundaries. Moving on, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has engaged editors and reporters from different media houses to train in generating growth opportunities and productivity for Women Entrepreneurship Grow project. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Agre Kabenge, told journalists that Grow project money is not for all women. The purpose of the training was to change public perception on the Grow Project Fund, the private sector foundation in Uganda that's responsible of the disbursement of the funds, confirmed that over 50 billion shillings has been lent out to women. Besides loans, Grow Project has rolled out other innovations to help women in value addition and cooperative production. Grow Project Fund is a grant given by the World Bank to the government of Uganda to support women enterprises. And finally, from the local stories, leaders managing different groups of city cleaners in Kampala have appealed for the allocation of 20 billion shillings to facilitate the desilting of water channels, landscaping, and paying outstanding wages for city cleaners. The Deputy Executive Director, KCCA, Benon Moses Kigenyi, said in the budget made the revelation during the presentation of the budget framework paper for KCCA for the financial year 2025-2026. Kampala is the capital city of Uganda. However, cleaning the capital city has always been a problem. Over time, Kampala has been cleaned by groups of community circles from the 5 divisions of Kampala who are not on contract but working as casual laborers for KCCA. These clean the city, desealed drainage channels plus doing landscaping. This arrangement of the reservation scheme was meant to support vulnerable women like those living with HIV/AIDS and widows to earn a living. However, in 2022, another group of youth came up to also engage in cleaning the city, and these are known as 7 Hills, which brought about confusion. Now, with those stories, we come to the end of our local stories.
Well, now let's have a look at the international news where murder charges have been filed against the suspect in a car ramming that killed 11 people at a Filipino street festival in Canada's Vancouver City. This according to prosecutors. The British Columbia Prosecution Service charged Kai G. Adam Law, 30, on Sunday evening with 8 counts of second-degree murder and said more charges were possible. Law, a Vancouver resident who has a history of mental health issues, appeared in court and remains in custody. This according to prosecutors. Investigators have ruled out terrorism as a motive for the car ramming that killed 11 people between the ages of 5 and 65 attending the Lapu-Lapu festival in the city's Sunset on Fraser neighborhood on Saturday evening. Dozens of people were injured in the attack and several remain in critical condition, according to officials. Interim Vancouver Police Chief Steve Rice said earlier that the suspect had a significant history of interaction with police and mental health care professionals. Rai told a news conference that the suspect was arrested at the scene of the attack after initially being apprehended by bystanders. Now moving on, over the past week I have crossed a radically changing North America from Arizona to Washington, D.C. in the United States, and then in Canada, witnessing a clear evidence of the consequences of historic change in the way the world economy is run. Huge uncertainty means nobody really knows where it is headed. The walk from the White House, Rose Garden, to the headquarters of the International Monetary Fund takes just 9 minutes. In the past few days, in this very short stroll, 2 very different worlds collided with each other. The former is the place where, at the start of this month, with an extraordinary chart and questionable equation, President Trump took on the world with his so-called reciprocal tariffs. The latter is the place where, just 3 weeks on from that, after rollback, market tumult and confusion, the finance ministers of the entire world gathered to try pick up the pieces even as they were still rebounding off the ground. At the IMF meetings that included gatherings of the G7 and G20 members, something unique happened. The US representatives faced not open hostility but exasperation, bewilderment and deep concern from the almost entire rest of the world for having sent the global economy back towards a crisis, just as it had finally emerged from 4 years of pandemic, war and energy shocks. The concern was most acutely expressed by the East Asian countries who had in early April been classed as looters and pillagers of American jobs because of the fact that these economies, many of them key allies of the United States, export more goods to the US than the other way round. Now moving on, they aimed to kill, and BBC identified security forces who shot Kenya anti-tax protesters. The members of Kenya's security forces who shot dead anti-tax protesters at the country's parliament last June have been identified by the BBC. The BBC's analysis of more than 5,000 images also shows that those killed there were unarmed and not posing a threat. The East African nation's constitution guarantees the right to peaceful protest, and the deaths caused a public outcry. despite a parliamentary committee ordering Kenya's Independent Policing Oversight Authority to investigate the deaths on the streets of the capital, Nairobi, and make public its findings. No report regarding the killings at Parliament has yet been issued, and no one has been held accountable. The BBC World Service team analyzed videos and photos taken by protesters and journalists on the day. They determined when each was taken using camera metadata, live stream timings, and public clocks visible in the shots. They plotted 3 of the killings on a 3D reconstruction of Kenya's parliament, allowing them to trace the fatal shots back to the rifles of a police officer and a soldier. What follows is BBC Africa Eye's detailed timeline of events as Kenya's members of parliament entered parliament for the final vote on the government's controversial finance bill, while protesters amassed on the streets outside on Tuesday, 25th June 2024. Nairobi, early in the morning, in what would be the capital's third large-scale protest since the finance bill was introduced on 9th May. Well, we extensively covered these protests in Nairobi. Unfortunately, there were many people whose lives were lost and families affected in the most negative way. But then there is a documentary, so if you want to watch it, you can look out for it on the BBC's website. Well, Julie, you have more for us in the press review.
Yes, indeed. That story is very interesting, and the power of social media. The power of social media. Anyways, in today's dailies, starting with the new vision, best worst performing districts named, and a list of how local governments performed in USMID projects. That is a story in the new vision. Museveni opens multi-billion church in Zimbabwe, and a picture of the event there, hoping that this multi-billion church makes its way to the hearts of its congregants in spirit and in truth. And looking at sports, Liverpool wins 20th league title, and matters trade, URA runs imported groupage cargo clearance, bans, URA bans imported groupage cargo clearance. But looking at matters religion, thousands visit Pope Francis' tomb, and still in the new vision, opportunities for jobs and tenders, but also display of 620 polling station registers to delay. Now let's move on to the Daily Monitor. Banks, telecom companies lock up money of the dead. And the Lizard says, yeah, there's no free money for relatives. But Kiplimo makes huge marathon statement. That is a picture in the Daily Monitor. And in other news, slow start as Electoral Commission kicks off voter register display. In the Daily Monitor still, will Dar Ports Innovation sway Uganda away from Mombasa? And when cancer survival comes at a cost? That's in the Daily Monitor. But let's have a look at what is in the Citizen. And in the Citizen, private sector welfare tops Tacta Workers' Day agenda, and what launch of cooperative bank means. Plus, plane crash survivors sue Precision Air for 7.2 billion. And still in the Citizen, Simba SC put on gritty display to qualify for CAF Cup final. Now looking at the Daily Nation, 5 billion a day debt stress for Ruto, and Kenya will this year pay 1.8 trillion, over half of the country's budget, to its creditors, highlighting the growing burden of debt that has spiraled to 11 trillion shillings, with debts maturing, a public hostile to new taxes, and President William Ruto walks an economic tightrope. And a picture there shows his counterparts, what they had to deal with in their tenure, with Mwai Kibaki 1.9 trillion, Uhuru Kenyatta had to deal with 8.6 trillion, and Ruto is dealing with 11 trillion. But also a picture there of the stars, and that is Sebastian Sawe and Kiplimo, as well as Alexander Motiso. Schools reopen today as head teachers demand funds to avert unrest. That is in the Daily Nation. Now, looking at what is in the Gazette today, we do have contents in there: the Education Pre-Primary, Primary and Post-Primary Act notices, the Advocates Act notices, Companies Act notices, the Insolvency Act notice, the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Regulation, the Local Governments Rating Act notice, International Institute of Health Sciences Limited notice, and the Biofuels Regulation notices, the Political Parties and Organizations Act notice, the DP Constitutional Amendment notice, the Police Control of Private Security Organs Regulations, that is a notice there, the Trademark Act Regulation of Applications Advertisements, and then the Ministry of Education and Sports General Notice of the new appointment replacement to Board of Governors in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 29 of the Education of the Pre-Primary, Primary and Post-Primary Act. That is Honorable Jesse Muyingo hereby appoints the following to the Board of Governors of Bahugu Secondary School with effect from 20th January 2025. And another notice there, that is an application that has been presented to the Law Council by Tujaineyo Benjamin, who is stated to be the holder of a Bachelor's of Laws degree from Islamic University in Uganda, having been awarded on the 21st day of January 2023, and a Diploma in Legal Practice awarded by the Law Development Center on the 12th day of April 2024 for the issuance of a certificate of eligibility for entry of his name on the roll of advocates for Uganda as by Nabakoza Margaret, Secretary Law Council. And that is it with the Gazette, but with the dailies altogether. Good morning.
Well, thank you, Julie. Now, before we take a short break, I would like to extend birthday greetings to Nakiria Florence, who is the multi-choice territory sales manager in Kavali. From us here at Good Morning Uganda, we say happy birthday, Bakuzala Kumande.
Oh, wow.
Well, happy birthday,
Hope
Florence.
she has Monday pinks instead of Monday blues.
Monday pinks instead of Monday blues. That's a new one. Robert, any beautiful word, just briefly, for Florence?
All I can tell her is the sky is the limit. Let her continue heading.
Should the sky be the limit, though? I think there's something above the sky.
There is something above the sky. But
Yeah.
What I'm not very sure is what is above the sky. Every day scientists come up with something new. But at least what I see clearly is there's the sky.
I'm
All right.
unlimited in God, so I'm
All
above
right.
the sky.
And the sky is blue. Happy birthday, Florence. Now, let's take a short break. We will leave you with the inspiration song of the day, which is Kampala from Caro Komeza. When we come back, we'll be speaking matters malaria in Uganda. Stick around. Well, good morning and welcome back from the weekend. The weekend where we saw Liverpool crowned Premier League champions, and Robert right here is, I think he's reeling from the shock of almost getting to the end but never getting there. I know that should be really, really grueling pain. And Robert, I really feel for you right now. Are you okay?
For the first time, I felt Manchester United fans were better off because they had no hope.
And it was okay.
And it was okay. They had no hope. It was clear for them.
Better to have no hope than to...
Yeah, but you see, when you have hope and towards the end you lose it. Now, this is, I think, the third season that we are almost there and we end up losing it. So I for once felt, maybe I wish I was a Man U fan.
We need an exorcism.
Do we need deliverance prayers for Arsenal? Perhaps Ateta should visit a church. I don't know, some
We
deliverance.
need serious prayers because we must break that bondage,
Bondage.
of failing.
Of almost getting there
Yes,
and
I
not
mean, you're
getting
always-
there.
I don't know. We need, and for
Can you
Arsenal
have a
fans, Soon I'll declare a 40-day fast before the next season.
Wow.
Oh.
I'm hoping champions
That's
will
extreme
go.
passion for sports. That's
But for the Man U fans, yes, I know they felt better because
I
you
think
don't have hope.
Manu should not
Consolation.
be in this conversation. You handle your loss on your own.
It's like a
but
poor
you know, the
man.
thing is, even Man United fans can't keep quiet. So
Yeah.
in one way or the other, each other will have each other on their lips.
Okay, interesting. There is that sort of toxic relationship between Manchester United and Arsenal fans. But yes, Liverpool were crowned Premier League champions in style and drew level with Manchester United on 20 titles as Tottenham Hotspur were demolished on a day of wild celebrations and emotion at Anfield. Now, if you saw the events that occurred outside Anfield yesterday, you would know what I am actually talking about. But Ruben will give us more on that later on in our sports segment, so make sure not to. Well, good morning and welcome back from the weekend. The weekend where we saw Liverpool crowned Premier League champions, and Robert right here is, I think he's reeling from the shock of almost getting to the end but never getting there. I know that should be really, really grueling pain. And Robert, I really feel for you right now. Are you okay?
For the first time, I thought Manchester United fans were better off because they had no hope.
And it was okay.
And it was okay. They had no hope. It was clear for them.
Better to have no hope than to.
Yeah, but
somebody-
you see, when you have hope and towards the end you lose. Now, this is, I think, the third season that we are almost there and we end up losing. So I for once felt
Do we
maybe
need
I wish I was a Man U fan.
We need an exorcism.
Do we need deliverance prayers for Arsenal? Perhaps at
Matters. There exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it is Good Morning Uganda, and this is our newsreel where we look at what is in the news and share our individual perspectives over the same. But you can join the conversation on the number 0709 602 592. Now, the conversation for today is a report by the Ministry of Health, which is rather concerning, a report indicating that malaria is still the leading cause of death in Uganda. Now, over the years, the government has had different interventions, different efforts to see that we curb the spread of malaria. And among these were programs that introduced the use of treated mosquito nets in our homes, and also a lot of sensitization back in school and even for communities on clearing bushes around our homes, on ensuring that we clear stagnant waters, fumigate the places where we stay, among others. However, according to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Health, Jane Ruth Acheng, we still have malaria at the top as the leading cause of death in the country. So what are we failing at? But what interventions are also in place? Are there new innovations in the fight against malaria? This and more will be in our conversation, which starts right this minute. My name is Olive Monica Najuma with Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono and Julie F. Nantaba Musisi. Coming to you, Julie. First of all, can we have a look at the prevalence and impact of malaria, where we are? Because I would like for us to know what the current statistics on malaria cases and fatalities are in the country.
Thank you, Olive. And well, malaria indeed being a leading cause, despite the government's interventions, it's still dire. Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng stated that Uganda is number 3 in the whole world, making it the third most country that spreads or is affected and affects those who come to Uganda with malaria, the disease of malaria globally. But the government has tried its best, and if you're in Uganda, you tend to think that a lot is being done, and when reports such as this come out, you tend to wonder, what happens? I thought there's a progress. A lot was being done. Because if you look at, for example, the net distribution as of 2023, over 28 million lasting insecticidal nets were distributed across 136 districts. Free of charge, right? But what does that do? You wonder if these nets are actually properly put to use, if they're actually used as they're supposed to be used, or they're used to keep chicken.
And catch fish.
And catch fish. In 2025, March this year, Uganda launched a nationwide malaria vaccine campaign, distributing over 2.2 million doses to 105 districts. And this is targeting children under the age of 2 years, which ideally now helps households reduce or curb the degree of malaria infections in homes. But then you wonder what happens to those older in age. Yet it still helps.
What is the rationale of immunizing children under the age of 2 vis-a-vis under the age of 5?
Well, I do not have clarity of that as per the medical experts. But in my view, as a Ugandan, as an ordinary citizen of Uganda who's affected by malaria, I would think that perhaps resources so far can only allow children to be dealt with first, and the progression should go on. But perhaps a health expert could throw more light on that. But looking at also, we talked about the use of nets in Uganda. By 2024, 87.3% of Ugandan households now own nets and use them, which is good. It's positive news because from 2014, it came from 52% in 2014 up to where we are now at 87.3 in 2024. So with that background of how much has been done, there's also the what is not being done, yet a lot is also being done for malaria infections and preventing malaria in Uganda.
Okay. Now, to answer that question on why there is a prioritization on children under the age of 2 or even under the age of 5, children under 5, particularly those under 2, are the highest risk of severe malaria and death. In Uganda, malaria is the leading cause of illness and death among young children, accounting for a significant proportion of outpatient visits and hospital admissions. And I'm putting emphasis on this or highlighting this because we now have a breed of new parents who don't believe in vaccination.
Yes.
But if you do not vaccinate your child against illnesses like malaria, then you're exposing them to an even greater risk.
That would make me wonder, though, are pregnant women in this docket?
No.
No, they are not.
They are not. Yes,
They are not. Now,
Because they're equally vulnerable.
Yeah,
yes,
but,
Robert, let's look at the health strain. How does malaria contribute to outpatient visits, hospital admissions, and inpatient deaths in the country?
Well, thank you very much. First, we must understand, like Julie said, we are not doing well when it comes to statistics globally. But when we look at home, like you have, as malaria contributes to 40% of all outpatient visits in Uganda. Now, people who come to hospitals from their homes to hospitals, out of the so many registered in Uganda, 40% of those are coming because they are suffering from one disease, and that is malaria. Now, malaria also contributes to 20% of all hospital admissions in Uganda. When you go to a hospital, those people, those who are admitted, 25% are suffering from malaria. Now that shows how much money is sent to treating malaria. Now, malaria also contributes to 14% of hospital death in Uganda.
Those numbers are...
So that is how big the problem is. But also, when we look at what plans does the various interventions, my sister tried to mention some of them, that our government is focusing on to end malaria. It has an approach that it's using, and this is in 3 approaches. One, we are using what we call the Malaria Reduction and Elimination Strategic Plan, where we look at reducing and eliminating, and the Malaria Mortality Reduction Strategy, but also sustain. Okay, basically we have reduction and elimination. Now, this is where these approaches come in. For example, when we talk about one of the approaches is indoor residual spray, where government of Uganda deliberately goes to your home and they spray. They use a chemical that repels and kills mosquitoes. Now that is to eliminate the mosquitoes. Currently, Dr. Jane Luther Chen was urging parents in a park district that during this time, we are going to embark on spreading in classrooms, we spray them, and dormitories, so that we are sure that the children, while in class, they don't have these mosquito bites. While they are sleeping in dormitories, they don't have that. Now, that is aimed at eliminating. Now, we have the mosquito nets, the treated mosquito nets that government gave out. Those reduce that as you're sleeping, the mosquitoes may not get you, but they may still get you outside. But the chances when you're dead asleep and you may not have something to avoid, you know how we do it in Africa, you slap here, you slap there, you kill, you count, that if you're dead asleep, so you're very vulnerable to these bites. Now, government has gone ahead since April 2nd, 2025, to introduce the support from Gavi and other development partners, Gavi Fund, vaccination, and they've begun with Apache District. And they are looking at, and Uganda, for those you talked about, people who are not willing now, Uganda becomes the 19th country in Africa to use this vaccine, which is administered in 4 doses. A child gets the first dose at 6 months, then at 7 months, at 8 months, and at 18 months. And we are targeting 1.1 million children under the age of 2 in highly infected districts, or those with also moderate transmission. So we hope if we look at this approach, but also remember another prevention is when mothers are pregnant and go for antenatal.
Yes.
One of the areas that government has made it a must is they are given anti-malarials.
Yes.
Many women know the commonly known Fancida. I don't know medically
What
but
they give it. Yeah.
yeah, to ensure that the baby and the mother do not suffer from malaria.
And also because the treatment of malaria for the mother, the drugs can actually affect the child.
I have a question for Robert, though. You did mention the elimination methods, and one of them was spraying.
Indoor residue spraying.
Indoor spraying. And many a times we've seen the distribution of nets as one that is prevalent by the government, as a government initiative. It's quite common, at least most of everyone, I can't speak for the 50 million Ugandans, but at least almost everyone has experienced receiving a net from the government, and that is a fight against malaria. But with indoor spraying, has the initiative been for particular spaces, or there has been a nationwide drive?
No, this has been for particular districts that are highly at risk, that have very high preference of malaria. Because believe you me, when you look at districts, for example, where we saw the launch of the vaccine by Dr. Jane Luther Chen, Uganda is mapped in terms of fighting diseases. So for particular diseases, you look at where most this disease is occurring, and that is where you take most of those, of where you put more emphasis. Yeah, that is why you see that indoor residual spraying is in districts that are in northern Uganda.
West Nile.
West Nile, that side, because you find that much as most of us get malaria from what we call Anopheles female mosquito, Gambia, or Gambia, many will call it like that, the scientists. But here we usually get more cases during the rainy season. But northern Uganda, they have also another unique particular mosquito that for it does not necessarily use the same methods for breeding like this one uses. So that's why they have higher preference rates, and that is where you need more action to be taken.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert. If you're just joining the conversation, the Ministry of Health has with concern noted that malaria is still the leading cause of death in Uganda. So we are trying to understand the problem, look at the interventions so far, what is working, what is failing, and of course, how do we move forward. Now, Julie, I would like for us to evaluate some of these government interventions that Robert has taken the liberty to help us understand. Now, looking at the preventative measures first, the government has implemented measures such as free distribution of insecticide-treated mosquito nets, indoor residue spraying, and vaccination campaigns. How effective have these interventions been in reducing malaria cases? Interesting.
So, like the statistics I shared earlier, that from a space of 10 years, between a space of 10 years, 2024, 2014. 2014 had a rate of 52% of Ugandans receiving nets. And by 2024, Ugandans were now at 87.3% who were using those nets. At that time in 2014, only 52% of them were using them. And that means that as much as the government distributes these nets in big numbers, at that time only 52 were using. They are procured, distributed, completed out of the stores, but 52% are using them. That means, what are the other nets being used for?
Okay.
But 2024 saw that 87.3% of Ugandans are now using their mosquito nets. Whether bought, whether given by the government, that doesn't matter, but it remains that they are using their mosquito nets. So that speaks into the sensitization drives, the government drives, talks, radio, media, TV talks by the government that have really been gonged into the ears of Ugandans and have shown impact. Now people know that malaria kills.
Okay.
But we've looked at the indoor residue spraying, And like I asked Robert, that was it a nationwide? Thankfully, it's now in different areas, which now this one is for elimination. And if you ask me, that is a plus in the fight. It is a plus. But now if we look at its reduction, the rest of Uganda needs it as well, because it's not just the northern Uganda that is highly affected by malaria, by mosquitoes. That means it needs, as effective and as hard-driven the mosquito nets have been, now the indoor residual spray campaign has to be driven as
Maybe
well.
a quick one on still progress that we have made. When we look at also statistics from World Health Organization, they show progress in reducing malaria parasite prevalence in children under the age of 5. From that is 42% in 2009 to now 9%. So it shows that at least there has been some reduction given these efforts to a certain level. They have yielded results. They are not the very best, but at least we have some bit of something to say.
Yes. And it's a 33% reduction. So we should pat
ourselves on the back.
Yes, we still have a long way to go, because that 9% still means life.
Yes.
It still means children under 5 dying, pregnant mothers, and many other people. We can still take it down, but still, it's a plus. We have done well. Now, Julie, on the insecticide treated mosquito nets, Leah says most parents don't put children in nets. They have nowhere to hang them, and also mosquitoes bite out of houses. So let them spray in bushes, breeding grounds for mosquitoes.
The elimination.
Thank you so much, Leah, and please join our conversation on the number 0709 602 592. Robert, let's look at the challenges in malaria control. It has been noted that there is drug resistance when there is an emerging problem, which is drug resistance to the commonly used malaria medications, including artemisinin-based combination therapies. So, how significant is this issue, and what are its implications for the treatment protocols?
One, the biggest challenge when it comes to malaria in Uganda is we become complacent. You know, we don't fear malaria. If you ever had, I have so many friends outside Uganda, but the fear they have about malaria, or if an American is coming to Uganda, the fear they have about malaria, for us,
it's normal.
Someone told you I'm having malaria. Someone can even tell you,
it's like having a flu.
Can you fail to come to work because of malaria? You know, we've got into that. You know, so and so is suffering from so we become complacent, and you know, complacency kills because you're content. Now, what brings usually parasites to become resistant is poor usage of drugs.
We are self-medicating a lot.
Leave alone, even if not self-medicating, Ugandans never complete doses that are given to them.
They
Once
never
you're
take
fine.
drugs
So
at
what
the right
happens?
time.
You're not completely healed. So these parasites, because drugs subject them to a fight, and then they kill them. Now, what happens? You've empowered your white body blood cells with these drugs, but because you've not completed that dose, these parasites multiply more. Now, when you bring the same drug, they have ever tested it, it's like an army. They have built capacity to fight your tactics.
Yes.
So that's why we have drug-resistant people not using doses, completing the doses, or taking their medication in time. The solution is take medicine, complete and take as prescribed by the doctors. As scientists in our labs, are you aware that at the Uganda Virus Research Institute, we are even developing mosquitoes that are going to be eating this very breed? We are developing mosquitoes that we shall end up that these mosquitoes eat, or they are reducing the capacity of these other mosquitoes in the number of eggs they produce.
Well, thank you, Robert. Now, Julie, as we close, your last comment. I've also learned that mosquitoes have reportedly developed resistance to chemicals that are used in indoor residue spraying. How, in your perspective, do you think this resistance is affecting the current malaria prevention strategies?
Obviously negatively, because now it's like washing, doing laundry and hanging in the dirt. You know, but I believe that with intensive and extensive research, still chemicals can be improved scientifically to defeat these mosquitoes that are growing resistant. But also many Ugandans who are not using their mosquito nets, if it's given to you, use it as a mosquito net. Do not use it to rear chicken or to trap whatever other insects you have. And also self-medication. It's bad. Take medicine as prescribed by the doctor. Vaccination is key, so take it.
Okay, thank you so much, lady and gentlemen. I will share a comment. It says, good morning, team. I think for starters, I can credit the government because it has been vocal in fighting malaria. Massive sensitization is seen, net distribution, vaccination, and adverts. Kudos there, but if malaria is still the leading cause of death, then more effort is needed, and it starts with us, the individuals. But Ugandans seem to take malaria not deadly. That's why some people go for treatment when they are completely down. They say prevention is better than cure, so if we put much effort on prevention, then malaria cases would be mitigated. You didn't leave me with your name, but thank you so much. And the last comment is from Owen Raymond, who says, thank you so much, UBC broadcaster. How far is herbal drugs in treatment of malaria? I think I'm not a doctor, so I really can't comment on herbal drugs, but what I know is that we don't know the concentration levels of these drugs, so you're better off seeing a professional and seeking medical help from experts. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. Good Morning Uganda continues. Up next is Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express. Later on, Jelly will be back with Good Morning Uganda Business News.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And of course, some pictures taken by an ancient Kodak camera, just like the one beside me, are worth even more. Back in the days, a Kodak ancient camera used to be a photographer's pride, of course, helping in capturing very special memories, heritage, and history. Today is a modern camera in front of me, but they have one thing in common, and that's the power to freeze time and tell stories across generations. We are going to be diving into the world of vintage and heritage, get to know why these artifacts were kept and how they're being used to promote tourism today. Good morning and welcome on the GMU Tourism Express. My name is Zakia Laki. It's an exciting morning, especially that there's just a lot of beauty around me. I am lost in ancient time, and with me is a guest that we had previously live who took us through vintage, artifacts that are being used today as tourist attractions, and we felt that there is need for us to get to the space where all these things are displayed so that you can get to see them and learn even how these were used back then. I'm happy to have you back, Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Lucky.
Yes, when we had a live, you had very interesting conversations and people really wanted to know more about these. Yes, and thank you also for having us in your space.
You're always welcome.
Yes, please say hello to the viewers.
I greet you all, our viewers, and I'm happy to be on UBC TV to share with you our experience in how we have preserved and conserved this kind of heritage. It might be a unique one, not the kind of heritage people are used to, but I'm sure by the time our show ends, we'll be able to understand how we have been able to collect and preserve this kind of heritage.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having us in your space. Yes, there's just so much of heritage here. What has inspired you to have all this collected in the same space?
Thank you very much. I think the reason why specifically we started this collecting is because we realized that there is a lot of evolution in technology, and some of these things are going to be extinct. They won't be seen by the generations that will come. So we're like, why don't we create a home where people could come and they're able to experience these kind of things that probably their forefathers used, but now because they are no longer in use because of one reason or another, they are no longer on the shelf. You can't go and buy it somewhere and use it. So we decided that we will have a home for these kind of items and keep them so that the generations to come can enjoy what their foreparents enjoyed. Yes.
And where are you able to collect all of these?
Well, collecting is not an easy thing. Believe me, if you saw this collection, I'm sure you're wondering, how long did it take you to collect this? It's been a long journey for us to collect these items, and they have been collected through different ways. One, there are people, for example, when you go for exhibitions, there are people who will say, I have these items in my house. I no longer have that much use in these items. I can donate them to BRIMS. And then another one will say, oh, I have these items, we can exchange. They attach a value to it, and then you pay for that value. But the most important thing that we carry of these items are the stories behind the items. Each item here has a very rich story where it was bought, how it was used in a home. Maybe you don't remember, but there were days when watching TV, not everybody could watch TV, but you only have to first go and bathe, sit on a mat somewhere and watch TV. So such stories are carried by these artifacts as they are being donated or even sold to you. We are most interested in the item, yes, but the story behind the item. So, and the other, we scavenge them from waste places that have scrap. That's where we get them. Others we buy from people who bring items from used second-hand things. You go and pick out those items that you think are of value. They might not necessarily be of value to the person selling, but for you, because you know the reason why you're conserving this kind of heritage, they add a lot of value to the collection that you have.
Okay, we've seen you exhibit on a number of, events. What has been the reception like, or people's reaction with this material?
Well, because these items were used by people in their homes or offices, and it's been a while for them to interact with this kind of things, For example, someone who was a secretary or a secretary in a big office, the moment they see a typewriter like this, they're like, oh my God, I used to type on this thing, and then it has a sound that it made so that everybody knew that someone was busy typing. Then the others are like, I remember my dad's secretary, the moment I visited her office, she always sat there and she did things that I didn't understand because I was a child. So it creates a lot of, brings back a lot of memory and creates a lot of stories. When people, for example, get to see the rotary dial phone, that ringtone, they're like, I remember, recall all the movies that they have watched and such kind of thing. So it's an experience that once someone dives in there, it walks them back in the days, and they're able to realize the far they have come and how technology has evolved. For example, if you look at this camera before us, in the 50s probably it was like the latest iPhone people are holding. But today if you look at it, it's like trash. So one of the things that this center does is to add value to items that had lost life, use them as museum artifacts, but also give them a new life so that the generations to come can pick a lesson or two from such items.
And I'm wondering, are some of these items still working?
Yes, some of them are. Some that are not, we have a person who helps us fix them, and especially those guys who are old, about that age, who interacted with such technology. Unfortunately, engineers of today are not so much into fixing these old things. Secondly, the spares also are not available, so the guys who are fixing them need to know where to pick what, and then they can put it together. But some of the items are interactive. Someone will be able to listen to a rotary dial phone, that ringtone, you know, that unique ringtone, which never changed. It was always the same every day and very loud. People will be able to listen to music played on a vinyl or LPs, as they may call them. So some of these items are very interactive. Yeah.
So take us through those items that you've been collecting. You mentioned about the phone, and what are some of the other items?
Well, the list is long. Our collection has over 8,000 items. And they range from different audio, visual kind of items. And yeah, we have the famous cassette players. In the 80s, people listened to music on cassette players. Even some weddings, people used to have a very big a boombox, put it somewhere, connect a few speakers, and they do it. They enjoy their wedding. Television sets, both black and white. Some of them are very interactive. You'll be able to see a few pictures. We have faxes. Today, it is very easy to send an email and you receive an instant response. But in the early days, you had to send either a mail through post office, wait for months until the information is read, and then someone writes back. But as technology evolved, a machine called a fax came into play, so that you could send a written message over a telephone wire. It goes across a distance, and someone on the other end receives it. But today, I mean, you just send a WhatsApp and someone sends instantly. So this also demonstrates how technology has evolved over time. And we are able to show you from the first generation phones up to the current ones. So someone will really appreciate and say, oh, so the phone I'm holding, the smartphone I'm holding today started from way back on a crank phone, which even didn't have numbers, but you only need to crank it like this, send a message to an exchange, then the person at the exchange asks you who you want to be connected to, then you let them know, and then they connect you to that person. After that, they call you back. It was a whole lot of experience. But today is so instant. I'm sure you don't want to be back in the days because, yes.
But it's interesting. You said most people have actually thrown out these things, or they don't even know the values attached to these things.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, how have you stood out to choose to collect these things and preserve them?
Well, I like this because, like I said earlier, growing up, I used to like picking things. And I didn't know I would pick up to this level. But I realized when my father passed on, we had a radio in our house. When I brought it home, my friends who used to come and visit asked me what this was. They didn't know it was a radio. And when I explained to them, they're like, oh, but how come it is so unique? The radios that we use to sing are not made out of wood. They are not wooden. They are different materials. I told them in the olden days, radios were made out of wood when resources were not depleted like they are today. But so I noticed that probably there are many people out there who don't know these kind of things. And I took it upon myself and said, you know what, I think I need to start collecting and preserving these items. Years down the road, people will be looking for such things and probably they don't have them. And as we have progressed into our collection, we have realized that there is a rich market for these items within the country. For example, if people are doing a movie of the 50s, you can't put a smartphone in a movie of the 50s. You need to look for that kind of item that was used around that time. So they'll come around, pick the kind of items that they would want to use to enhance their film or movie. We've seen artists who are doing music. People like to dance around vintage cars and such kind of thing. So we noticed that if we preserve these things, the music industry, the film industry will have a place where they'll be picking some of the props that they use in their to enhance their movies. Yes.
And even bring back the memories.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you talk about models, I've also seen them use the same equipment in whatever they're doing. Yeah, so it brings us to these. How have you been able to use them in the tourism industry, especially in promoting Uganda?
Okay, so we have participated in several activities that are local and national and international activities where we are invited to showcase some of the artifacts in our space. Now, because we don't have big space, display space, what we do is we innovated and said, can't our museum move to spaces where people can find it? If you want to go to Uganda Museum, you have to drive Kira Road, plot, blah, 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 and go into the building. If you want to appreciate the Ankole culture, you have to drive to Igongo and see this. If you want to appreciate the Itesot culture, you have to go to Article in Soroti. But for people who wanted to appreciate this kind of heritage, we thought having them come here, because we have limited space, it would be difficult. So we said, but this museum, these artifacts can find people where they are. So what we do, we pack them very well, and we are able to exhibit in any space where people want us to be. We have been at national functions at Kololo, in Jinja, we've been to Masaka, we've been to Kenya across the borders, we've even been in Kigali to exhibit this kind of things. So we do what we called a museum on vintage wheels, a museum on vintage wheels. Why? Because even the vehicle on which we carry these items in the vehicles of the 80s, it's not the modern day vehicles. It's an old vehicle, but can really carry our artifacts to different spaces.
That's an interesting conversation, but we are not even done. We are still diving into the world of vintage. Stick around, and we are still on Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Time for JMU Business. My name is Julie Nantaba Mosisi. From clerical roles to leadership roles, that is celebrating women as they rise above the different roles in their spaces, especially in the corporate space. And we are looking at women in banking. Women's participation in banking in Uganda has evolved from clerical roles in the mid-20th century to leadership positions by the 1990s. Now, with a notable stride in microfinance and community banking, this has been seen, and advocates, including political figures and business leaders, want policies like lower interest rates, and tax reforms to engage the female gender into business. Despite breakthroughs into leadership, women's participation in banking remains limited, and female leaders are actively championing initiatives to encourage greater female engagement in banking and saving practices. Now, the chairman, Kasita Thaddeus Musoke Nagenda, says they are collecting feedback from women in business so as to address the challenges that women face. Now, looking at matters cars, time for you to own a car as you counter environmental and health hazards on the road. NCBA Bank and Motorcade Uganda have launched a strategic partnership to make zero-mileage vehicles accessible to middle and upper-class Ugandans, countering the environmental and health hazards posed by second-hand cars dominating Kampala's roads. Now, in spite of their pollution nature, old cars in Uganda face over 100% tax levy fees relative to their value, coupled with high maintenance costs. Stakeholders at this partnership highlight the opportunity cost of driving new cars over used ones. The URA Commissioner General recently exposed fraudulent tax overcharging by importers inflating prices. In spite of this, the Drive Your Dream Today initiative offers 100% financing with flexible repayment terms, targeting individuals earning at least 5 million monthly and business expanding fleets. The partnership finances 100+ vehicles, initially targeting a 30% shift from used to new cars. Now, the former Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sam Kutesa, has commended the individuals who have ventured into innovation to solve the country's challenges. He was launching Bwera Innovations, a company that provides solutions for livestock farmers. Animal farmers in Uganda face challenges ranging from disease, feed shortages to limited access to knowledge and resources. Now, Bwera Innovations, a local company supported by Uganda Industrial Research Institute, provides solutions to livestock farmers using indigenous knowledge with alternative medicines through research. The aim is to provide livestock farmers with accessible and affordable solutions to improve their livelihoods. Former Minister of Foreign Affairs Sam Kutesa launched the Bwera Innovations at Uganda Industrial Research Institute and commended Ugandans who have contributed to the country's development through innovation. He encouraged Bwera's innovation to make use of the Innovation Fund put in place by government. Now, time to look at what the forex rates look like. And as of 25th April 2025, looking at what the US dollar was, it was buying at 3,659.50 and selling at 3,669.50. And by midday, it was at 3,659.55 with an increased value there and selling at 3,669.55. Closed in at 3,659.50 back to its opening rate and selling at 3,669.50. The British pound was buying at 4,858.71 and selling at 4,871.99, and the euro was buying at 4,145.48 and selling at 4,156.80. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.29 and selling at 28.36, and the Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.36 and selling at 1.36, and the South African rand was buying at 194.01 and selling at 194.54. Well, that's it from GMU Business. Up next is the agenda. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
In a nation hungry for truth, A world where every story matters. There exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, every story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala.
We have to change the political culture in this country, really. Who has bewitched Ugandans?
I want to assure you, as government, we shall do whatever it takes to ensure that Ugandans are safe.
We have conversations that have analysis, explanation.
This law society, this union of theirs, because they want a job everywhere, they want to be this, they want to be that, they want... No. We know it's a union.
You cannot be making a road, bitumen grade 1, in Congo for 5 billion.
But not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth.
The argument that the General Court Martial is responsible for peace and stability is without basis, either in law or in fact.
We have been told how Napoleon was a great orator. Now, Napoleon cannot help me get food. They told me combine harvesters in Saskatchewan. I don't know where Saskatchewan is. This is a geography we're taught. Instead of teaching me how to preserve Mabera forest, they're teaching me about Rhineland. This is a problem we got. We cannot run away from it.
Right now, you hear very disgusting stories of members of parliament. Instead of discussing the details of loans, they ask for their cuts.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
Why do you go through this complicated procedure,